Welcome, everybody. And good morning to folks in the US. Good evening to students from India. We have the pleasure of introducing Professor Siva Raghupathy Siva Kumar, an alumnus of CEG and a professor at Georgia Tech. He directs the Entrepreneurship Center there. It's our privilege to have Siva here today. And students, please take advantage of this week's sessions. We have exciting topic of startups, customer discovery, and entrepreneurship. Siva, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, SK. Good evening, everyone, to those in India, and good morning to those who are here in the US. I'm going to introduce myself first, but I'm going to give you a small piece of work to do in the background while you're listening to my story. And SK and KG, you can also participate in this, right? So the question I have for you is, when you look around your life, what is a product that you absolutely love using? Right? It could be something that you use daily. It could be your toothpaste. It could be the shoes that you wear, or it could be something that you use more infrequently, right? Something that you use maybe only once a month, but you see that it is really, really valuable. So I'm going to, and maybe 10 minutes in, once I get done with my background, I will sort of pose this question back to you and say, tell me about a product that you love. Like, I'll start with mine, right? Like, I have this Staedtler sharpener that I absolutely love using. It's a pencil sharpener, right? Like, it's not a big deal. It's a pencil sharpener, but it works so well that sometimes I'll try to use a pencil just because I can go and use that sharpener, right? So it's a fascinating. It's like $2. I think you can get it off Amazon, but I absolutely love using it because it's so reliable and it sharpens the pencil precisely every single time, right? And I just find it fascinating. But welcome to the students who are on board. Just think about this. Again, it can be anything that you use. It could be a spoon.
So
but
a follow-on
you
question, Siva, should it be a thing that is made, a manufactured thing, something physical?
So it is a thing that you should be able to buy.
Okay, so software or
exactly.
something.
It can be a piece of software as well. Yes, it can be a piece of software, but it is something that you should be able to buy or obtain to use. Okay. But before I sort of jump in, I'm going to pose. I know I see a few students on the session. I'm going to ask you. Maybe I'll also wait till I finish my background to get into this portion as well. Samita, Aishwarya, and is it Chiranjeevi? I want you to think of what is it that you would like to learn from these two sessions, right? And I know I'm going to talk about if you want to think of a new product idea and you want to launch a startup, how to do it effectively is what I'm going to focus on. But and so there's one thing that you want to learn from these two sessions, could be from this domain, but it could be something else. It could be I want to understand what this specific aspect of a journey is, right? Like going to grad school or going to work in a company. And so I'm going to poll you at the end of my background session, just to understand what is one thing that you hope to learn out of these two sessions. That's sometimes useful to me just because I know what I want to teach you, but I don't really have a good sense for what is it that you want to learn. And I want to make sure I hear from you what is one thing that you would like to learn at the end of these two sessions. And if my natural lectures don't cover it, I'll make sure I come back and talk about an answer to those two questions. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share my slides, but be ready with these two answers, right? One is, what is one product that you would really love to use, that you would advocate to your friends? When you meet a friend, you would say, hey, you really need to try this. And the second is, what is one thing that you would like to learn through these two sessions, right? And I'll come back and poll you all one by one after I get done with my background session. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. SK, you're able to see my screen? Okay, wonderful. So yeah, I was born and brought up in Chennai. I barely left Chennai once I settled down in Chennai. The first few years, I was sort of following my dad to different parts of India, but then starting my first grade, I settled down in Chennai. My mom was a professor at Queen Mary's, and my sister and I, we settled in Chennai, and my dad would join us whenever his work would be able to allow him to come and spend time with us. And my dad was in the civil services. That's why he was sort of traveling around the country. This is the school that I went to, St. Bede's Anglo-Indian Higher Secondary School. It's in Santhome, just by the beach. So I did my middle school and high school here. My elementary school was a preparatory school that's attached to St. Bede's. It's called Dominic Savio, just across the road. And I had a wonderful time. Nothing that is specific that I would call out. I made some really good friends, and we're still friends till this day, people that I've studied all the way from first grade. And then after my 12th grade at St. Bede's, I went to the College of Engineering, Guindy, to do my computer science. And the only interesting tidbit sort of in the transition is I went into computer science at CEG, but I'd never barely even touched a computer before I went into college, right? And so sometimes I see students saying, wow, I don't have enough background in something, but that's what college is for, right? College is so that you can learn. Sometimes I see students putting a lot of pressure on themselves to do amazing things, even when they're in college or they're in school, and you don't need to have a lot of background. You can learn. That's the entire point of going to college, so that you can learn new stuff. And that applies to grad school as well. And I think I heard this even from other professors who have been lecturing. And I think this is, SK also mentioned this. I had an admission at CEG and I had an admission at Madras Medical College, and I had to make the decision. And for me, it was clear. I absolutely fell in love with computers and computer science. So it was a relatively easy decision for me, even though it was painful for sort of extended family, because I think giving up a medical seat is not the easiest thing to do. It worked out well because my sister eventually became a surgeon, and so somebody in the family in the medical field. But I had the time of my life at Guindy. Really liked the freedom that came with college, and had some wonderful professors. Some of them are still there. My thesis advisor was Arul Siromani, who just retired. Sridhar Kandasamy, who was visiting professor at that time, who is now back in the Bay Area, and Uma Maheswari ma'am, and Valli madam, Geeta madam. There are some really wonderful professors that I was fortunate to have while at Guindy. And I graduated from Guindy, and I went to the University of Illinois for my grad school. So for those of you who know, Illinois is a really wonderful program, especially for computer science. It's a really nice public school, even otherwise, but it's an excellent program for computer science. And I had a few seniors who had gone to Illinois, and so I was super excited. And there are two of us, another classmate of mine from Guindy and we went to Illinois. And I had gone there to do my master's. So I did my master's, again, fell in love with that place. You can see a lot of snow. It is in the Midwest, and so it does get a lot of snow, especially in the winter. My first winter, I remember the temperature went down to negative 40 degrees with wind chill. And I'm sure in school you've learned in physics and chemistry that at negative 40 centigrade and Fahrenheit are the same, right? That's the temperature at which the Fahrenheit scale and the centigrade scale converge. And but I experienced it in practice, and it was not the most fun experiencing that kind of cold, but the university itself was an excellent university. And while I was doing my master's, I was really fortunate to go off and do a summer job at Microsoft in Redmond. Again, this was in the late 90s, and this was at the time when Microsoft was still small enough that you really interacted with a bunch of people directly. The interns got to go to Bill Gates's house for lunch, so it was a really nice experience. But that 3 months really gave me insight into what it is to be a full-time software developer, right? And because that's what I was doing. And at least from my personality, I couldn't see myself doing this sort of for a long time. And so I came back from the internship, and my mindset had actually changed by then, saying, okay, I want to go on to do research. I love working on problems and love doing puzzles. And I came back and told my advisor, no, I'm going to go on for a PhD. And he was super happy because you want people to stay on and work with you on your research. So I worked on multi-hop wireless networks. I'll talk about my research in a second. It was a relatively new area at that time called ad hoc networks. And I worked on sort of routing algorithms for multi-hop wireless networks. And this is where I also met my wife. My wife was at grad school at Illinois. And so it's a very, it's a sort of home away from home for me, because it's obviously where I got a world-class education, but at the same time met my wife as well. And so I graduated from Illinois and wasn't really sure whether I want to go into the industry or academia. So when I was looking for jobs, I was looking at both sides, and ended up really liking visiting different campuses, trying to figure out whether I could fit in those campuses, and ended up coming to Georgia Tech. So this was back in 2000. I joined the faculty here at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and I've been here since then. So I've been at Georgia Tech. This is my 23rd year. I've had the pleasure working with some excellent students here at Tech, and I'll speak about them in a few minutes. So yeah, I've been here at Georgia Tech for 23 years. I teach in the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. And while at Georgia Tech, the first 15 years of my career, I was, and I still lead the NEON research group, where we do work in wireless networking and mobile computing. These are very broad areas. You heard one of my PhD graduates speak a few weeks ago. Bhuvana was one of my students, and she worked on biomolecular communication, right? She was working on bacterial communication between bacterial colonies. So we take these terms very sort of in a very broad sense. So we work on anything that sort of generally loosely related to wireless and mobile. We primarily focus on algorithms to solve problems in these domains, but the algorithms are most often rooted in sound theory. And then when we build those algorithms, we definitely go off and develop systems that use those algorithms. We like to see those algorithms work in practice. And because of sort of taking it to systems and having a systems-oriented focus on research, the first 15 years of my career, I was fortunate to have spun out 3 startups based on research from my lab. EGT was the first startup that I was involved in, and basically the company focused on how do you put in more video into the same network, right? How do you transport more video into the same network? And so the company was looking at compression techniques and protocol optimizations to do that. So if today a cable provider can send in 10 videos, we were looking at, okay, could the cable provider in the same network send 14 videos, right? So that's what EGT was focused on. And EGT was acquired by a local company here called Harris. And then I did a company called ASAN, which was in the network optimization space. And here we focused on how do you make networks run faster, right? So just because you have a gigabit per second access link doesn't mean you get a gigabit per second throughput for your applications. And one of my first PhD students had worked on this technology to make networks do parallel routing. So at a super, super high level, today, if you take the internet, the way the internet works, and let's say you're watching a Netflix video, the video session from the Netflix server down to your TV or your set-top box takes a single path, right? So all the packets belonging to the session take a single path, even though the network itself, the underlying internet itself is a mesh network, right? There are different paths that the packets could take, but they end up taking the same path. And we basically broke that restriction. And so we allowed packets to take different paths through a network and hence get the performance boost through that parallelization. So that's what the PhD student had worked on, and then we commercialized it through this company called ASAN, which was bought by EMC and now Dell. And after ASAN, I did a company called Star Mobile, which was in the enterprise mobility space. At a high level, we, like a company, could use our platform to convert an application that they use for a business process today that runs on a PC, and the platform would automatically generate a mobile app, right? So you don't need to do any coding. The platform could take the desktop application and convert it into a mobile app so that the company's employees and customers and partners can now have access to a mobile app that they can use to interact with the business processes. And so I had this wonderful experience the first 15 years of my career at Georgia Tech to launch these three ventures. And the way academia works, certainly here in the US, and now that's happening in India as well, is you can go on a leave of absence, right? So you can say, look, I want to go off and work with the startup. I'm going to go on a leave, and they let you go, and you can build the startup and come back to academia once you're done with it. And so that's what I did with these ventures. And when about 7 years ago, when I finished my sort of third startup, I did help launch a platform at Georgia Tech called CreateX, where we help students do startups. That's the reason I'm even giving this lecture here, where we help students understand what does it take to launch a product that you think will be valuable to society. And that's been an incredible journey last 7 years. We've helped over 6,000 students understand what entrepreneurship means. And we've launched over 300 ventures. And our most successful company is now worth over $1.3 billion. It was founded by a student like you all, and he still runs the company, and it's got 600 employees, and they're doing incredibly well. So that's something I've been focused on over the last 6-7 years. And then more recently, I took on this role as the overall head of commercialization at Georgia Tech, where I now oversee both our student and faculty entrepreneurship efforts. Right. Hopefully that was interesting and useful to hear about this journey. I'm going to now jump into the rest of the lecture, but I'm going to pause and I'm going to do what I said I will do, which is go around the room and ask you those two things, right? One is, what is one thing that you're hoping to learn from these two lectures? And second, what is a product that you use, however frequently or infrequently, that you absolutely love to use? Right? If it's okay with you, I'm going to just call out names, and SK, you are first on my screen.
Thank you, Siva. So in terms of product, there were two things that came about. One was it's actually a food item, something that I love sharing with people. There is a cafe here nearby called Cafe Yum, and they have a yum bowl where it has a lot of vegetables and rice, and it's a Mexican-inspired bowl. That's one product that I really love. Okay. And if soft, not software really, but if digital assets are also considered in this, then I have tons of recommendations on film music. So okay. any popular number. So that would be the other. And as to what what I'm hoping to learn from these sessions is. First of all, I'm inspired as to learn from other CEG alumni, and the expertise with respect to entrepreneurship, having directed so many students. That's really inspiring to me. So I'm looking to learn a little bit from these sessions.
Thanks, SK. And music, is it a specific language or genre, or does it span different languages?
So in this case, it was simple. I'm a simple Tamil film music enthusiast. So each of them. So A.R. Rahman, Raja's singles, and so on. There are many. Santosh Narayanan today, or Anirudh, or anybody. I mean, so there's a bunch of them. But that's something that I usually can get very interested about.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. Thanks, SK. Samhita?
So I can't think of I'm just thinking of the most basic product. So I drive to college, so I think I use the car in that sense.
Yeah.
So I'd say that. And then to what I hope to learn from this is, so once you make a start, if you come up with an idea, how do you go about with making a startup? Like how do you approach investors and like the pre-seed funding and stuff like that? I want to know more about.
Got it. Samhita, can I ask you a few questions? Like what major are you? Like what department do you study in?
All of us are in computer science, whoever's in this meet. We're all third-year computer science students.
Okay. And what car do you drive?
I drive a Honda City.
And can I ask you, like, what is one thing that you like about the Honda Civic?
I mean, I like the fact that it's an automatic car. I'm not really good at driving manual cars.
I see.
But one thing I'd like is my car is an old model. I just like if there's like a reverse camera and stuff like that in that.
I see. Got it. Wonderful. And thanks, Samhita. I'll definitely make sure that I address that question that you asked. But this was useful. Aishwarya?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Aishwarya.
Yeah. Okay. So one product that I really like. Again, this might be very simple, but I got these so when you move tables, like you know how it makes like a noise sometimes. So I got this product that like you can stick it to the legs of the table and it doesn't make a noise anymore. So that definitely made things a little better. That was the only thing I could think of since I'm sitting next to the table right now. And with respect to the thing that I want to learn from this session, I think it's mostly like, you know, how do you become confident in your idea? Like you have an idea, how do you know that it's like worth pursuing? Or if you can do something or if you can gain something out of it? Because most of the times I just feel like I just discredit it because I don't think there's much value to it.
I see. Got it. No, that's an excellent question, Aishwarya. And like on the product, the pads that you mentioned, where do you stick them on the table? Is it at the bottom of the legs?
Yeah, at the bottom of the legs, where they make contact with the floor.
I see. And is it like felt, where it gives them some cushioning and so it doesn't make noise? Okay.
So on one side it's like the adhesive, and the other side it's like the felt.
Yeah. Got it. Like, how did you even think of buying it in the first place? Like, who told you about it, or how did you come to know about it?
So I was just at the shop when I saw this, and like we had this table in our house that used to make a lot of noise when we moved it. And my dad used to get very annoyed because he used to think that it would disturb the neighbors who lived below us.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, immediately I thought, okay, maybe I could try it out, and it worked. So.
It's interesting that you're saying that it stops noise. I completely believe it. I can see that being a value. The other value I've seen when you have these stuck to the bottom of the table, and I wonder whether you've run into it, is you can also, it's easy to move the table because you can just slide the table from one place to another.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Very nice. Thanks, Aishwarya. Chiranjeevi?
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as for the product, first I thought of a Bluetooth speaker, which I really like, and I got it when I was in 9th grade. My uncle got it for me, so it's got really. It's small, but it's pretty loud and clarity is clear. So whenever I find time, I try to use it. And as Samantha said, that reminded me of my bike, which I used to go to college every day.
Yeah.
I like the bike because it's got pretty good torque, and so yeah, it's fun to ride it.
Got it. And the bike, Chiranjeevi, do you drive it from home, or like what do you use the bike for?
Yeah, from home to college and back.
Got it. Got it. And what do you want to learn from these 2 sessions?
From these decisions, so I just want to know about like this whole startup and the company, the ecosystem, like how it works. Because so recently I joined this startup weekend. There was some in Chennai. It was an online event, and then I had no clue about it, but I just joined because a friend of mine suggested me to join that.
Yeah.
And then we ended up winning 2nd place in that. So we had a startup team. So like we had an idea about it, and we haven't started really working on it because we neither have the expertise on the, the market and everything. So just wanted to know about it.
Got it. Got it. And so can I ask, like, what was your idea for that won the 2nd prize?
So this idea wasn't actually mine. There was a girl who brought up this idea. She had it, and then we all, like all random people, we joined together on Gather Town. And then we worked on it. So it's like an Airbnb for pets. It's called Pethood right now. We're calling it.
Yeah.
So it's like we've got pet hosts and pet owners.
Yeah.
So these pet hosts, they're people who have the facilities in the area, the place to host pets.
Yeah.
And they're willing to take care of the pets when, the pet owners go for like a movie, or they can even go out of station for a few days or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the pet owners, they usually they can leave their pets at the verified pet hosts.
Yeah.
And so the verification process we are planning to do on our own from our side. So that like when we certify them, only then they'll be a certified pet host, and they can put up their place on our website and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's not just for dogs. I mean, when we say pets, usually the first thing that comes to mind is dogs.
Yeah.
So apart from dogs, we were just thinking of adding cats, fishes, and more like birds, exotic birds, and slowly expanding that to like even iguana. I mean, I don't know if someone has an iguana in Chennai or something, but yeah, we were thinking that.
I see.
Yeah.
No, that's a wonderful idea, and I would use it. I would have a dog, and our sort of social interactions are always curtailed by how long we can leave him alone, right, at home. And I can see that being really valuable.
And that's the one major problem the pet owners are facing, that they're unable to leave their pets somewhere where they're going. And because of that, many of their trips and outings are, hindered.
That's right. Exactly. Now, in the US, I'm sure this is true in India as well. There is the concept of daycare facilities, right?
Yeah, WAG and Rover are used in US. Yeah. And those were in US, and when we saw in India, we had, I think, pet. I don't remember the name, but yeah, it was just one, but there weren't many. So competitors in India.
Got it. And I'm curious, like one last question, as when you all were working on this project, did you learn like what percentage of households in
Um,
What would your guess be? Is it 15%, 20%, 50%?
I think it was somewhere around the 20 to 30%, I think.
Okay, got it. So that's still very sizable. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Chiranjeevi. And
Thank
Kate? KG?
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. The product I love is my Fitbit. I mean, I like a lot of products, but recently I started loving it.
Yeah.
It's something I never would have thought, but it really is like coming to how I do my things every day now.
I see.
So it's not just a watch.
Yeah.
It's more like how I behave. Like, you know, sometimes I take 100 more steps because it's close to next milestone.
That's true.
It's also funny, like they have integrated a lot of things. Like now I go on virtual trails and stuff, trying to go on different trails around the world.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me. And it's also touching upon like health. So I really like that aspect.
That's right. How long have you had it, KG, the Fitbit?
I had it for a while, but I didn't really use it so much. But recently something changed, and then I started taking fitness really seriously.
Wonderful.
But now I feel like I try to keep it. Maybe I complete my fitness goals, it might leave, but I don't know. Starting to find a pattern here, like habit, right? Every week I have goals now. I'm trying to.
That's true. Wonderful. And what would you love to learn, KG, from these sessions?
It's a lot. I'm also like aspiring entrepreneur. It's sort of like very close. There are different questions I have. One is like, you know, just focusing on the problem. There is so many things outside it. Like I think you already hit upon like market sizing, right? And then financials. Today we talk about valuation and stuff, and so it becomes like more of a business rather idea anymore, right? Like how do you survive this real world with your idea? So for viability. So I know I can't expect a clear like right answer, but the more I feel is like, I think someone told like confidence, right? Like you want to meet like-minded people, see how they do, and take one step at a time. So
got it. Thanks, KG. Yeah, like it's interesting. At Georgia Tech, when we work with students, we use the term entrepreneurial confidence, right? Which is we don't want every single one of our students to go off and do a startup. That's not realistic, but they can be entrepreneurially confident so that sometime in life, when they see an entrepreneurial opportunity, they can jump at it, right? And so we try to get that through to the students. But thanks, KG. In fact, I forgot to say something when I talked about my research group, and it'll be remiss if I don't mention it. I've graduated 22 students in my career so far, 18 of them PhD and 4 master's students. And 5 of the students are from CEG. Incredibly happy with how they've done in life. You met one of them, Bhuvana, who's at Wisconsin-Madison. There's another professor, Karthik Sundaresan, who just came back to Georgia Tech. He was one of my earlier PhD students. He was in the industry for a while, and then he's come back to Georgia Tech to become a faculty member. And Aravind is another graduate from my group. He's at Amazon. Sriram is at Apple. And Sham is still working on his PhD. He's still in my lab. But I just wanted to give a shout out. Yes, I graduated from CEG, but I've also had the pleasure of working with some incredible students who have graduated from CEG and come to Georgia Tech. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go on to my sort of core part of the lecture, and I think we have like 18 minutes. SK, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, sounds good. I think some of you, I could sense nervousness about startups, and I think it's rightly so, right? Which is startups are incredibly risky to do. The failure rates are very, very high. And so most startups end up failing, right? It's not even just majority. Most startups will actually fail. And if you use, I think one of you asked me, what does it take to raise venture capital? How do you approach VCs? Even if you take that as a yardstick of, okay, what percentage of startups end up raising VC funding, it's actually tiny, right? Less than 0.1% of startups actually raise venture capital funding. And so if you, and it's not necessary that if you get VC funding, you're going to be successful. Again, the success rates are really small, even post raising funding. So I'm going to pause here, and I know all of you have you've thought about product ideas based on, or you've thought about products that you love. Can you think of like what might be some reasons for why startups fail? So what that means is you've launched a company, it's making a product, and at some point you run out of money and you shut down shop, right? So you close the company and you move on to something else. And what do you think are some example reasons for why startups might fail? Any thoughts?
Maybe they were not able to keep up with a growing demand. Maybe they were not able to scale their business.
Got it. That's a really interesting point, Divyashree, right? I'm saying your name correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think that's an interesting observation, which is they were not able to keep up with demand, right? So I'm going to write that down as a possible answer. Any other reasons that you think why startups might fail? So I'm going to go back to the products that each of you identified, right? As, oh, this is my favorite, like SK, the Cafe Yum that you go to. Let's say they go out of business. Why do you think they might go out of business if they go out of business?
Oh, there's been a real reason. Pandemic was a reason where many such restaurants went out of business.
Got it. So there's some societal changes that has completely changed the environment in which that business could survive, right? I know it's rare, but it can happen. What about like Samita and Aishwarya, Chiranjeevi? Like maybe I'll ask this question to Chiranjeevi. You had this wonderful idea of a pethood startup. Let's say you launch the company, and let's assume that in this hypothetical world that company fails. Why do you think pethood? What's the reason that pethood might fail?
So one major thing which we were thinking was that certification process. So we had to, we have to certify them properly, and if by chance they don't have a good environment for the pet and the pet ends up getting hurt or anything, so that will be a huge legal process and a big black mark in the face of the company, which would be pretty hard to erase.
So that's a very sophisticated answer. Thanks, Chiranjeevi. Yeah, like regulatory and certification, registration processes, liabilities that come out of your business. Yeah, those are potential reasons that a company could fail. Samita, Aishwarya, how about you both? I know, Aishwarya, you drive a car. Like, do you see a reason why Honda might go out of business? Like, what could happen that'll make Honda go out of business?
I don't know if I can see cars by its own going out of business, but Honda on its own, maybe because of like electric cars or something like that. If they don't come up with a proper like sustainable version, maybe that will lead to like something like that.
Oh, that's a superb answer, actually. Like there are, history is laden with examples where these big companies have failed because they've not caught on to new technological trends, right? And so you're right. If Honda says, hey, we don't believe in electric cars, that can be the death knell, right, for them as a business. Hopefully they're not doing it, right? They're keeping up and they are figuring out how to keep up with technological trends. But that's a really good point for established companies. Absolutely, you want to make sure that you're keeping up with technological trends. It turns out that it's not an easy thing to do, right? For established companies like SK works for Intel to keep with the absolute new technologies that are coming up is not an easy thing to do. And I have sort of an unsolicited book recommendation, right? The Innovator's Dilemma is a wonderful book if you are looking for a reading suggestion over the summer to look at. It talks about how it's really difficult for big companies to truly embrace new technologies, how the incentive structures is built against it, right? I think it's worth looking at. Aishwarya, how about you? Can you think of any reason why a startup that you think of might fail?
Maybe some competition from.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't hear that before. That's a really good point. Go ahead, Aishwarya.
Yeah, or probably it's, again, like I was saying, maybe the idea just wasn't as great as thought it was initially. So
I see. Can I dig deeper into that, Aishwarya? Like you're saying that the idea wasn't great. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean that an idea is not great?
Okay, so like suppose you had a purpose for something, like suppose you thought of a functionality for a particular situation.
Yeah.
And either the situation has passed where you no longer need that, or maybe it wasn't implemented in a way that fully solved that particular problem that you were trying.
Interesting.
So probably those reasons.
Got it. Thanks, Aishwarya. That is spot on. I understand exactly what you're saying. So I'm just going to summarize the sort of answers I heard, right? Which is the company is not keeping up with demand, so they are not able to scale, and that hurts them as a business. There are sort of environmental conditions, right, or societal conditions that can dramatically change, that make it impossible for the business to survive. Restaurants during the pandemic is an example. Certification, registration, regulatory processes and liabilities that come associated with it was another reason. Company not keeping up with technological advances, right, is another interesting reason. Competition, I'm surprised I didn't hear competition early on, but I know a lot of founders are worried about competition when they are launching companies. And then Aishwarya sort of ended with this, well, the idea might not have been great to start with, right? Which is either the solution that you're building is no longer needed, or it doesn't fully address the problem. You've not understand the problem to its entirety. I'm actually quite blown away by the sophistication of the answers, because these are really, really meaningful reasons. But I do want to really simplify it at the stage that we are all at, right? Which is, if you are just thinking of, I want to launch a venture and I want it to have, I want it to survive, I want it to make meaningful progress in the market, I want it to gain traction, you can actually boil down the single most important reason, and there's a lot of data that has been looked into to arrive at this reason, right? And I'm going to share that reason with you, but there is this process that I'm going to tell you about the rest of today's lecture, and the next lecture is, okay, how can you combat the fact that the odds are against you, right? And it's called evidence-based entrepreneurship, and we'll go through it at a high level. But so here is the reason, right? Startups don't usually fail because they failed to make something. And I know I'm talking to a bunch of engineering students. You are really capable of building something that you think needs to be built. And thankfully, it turns out that that's almost never the reason, right? Startups don't fail because they fail to make something. The biggest reason why startups fail is because they fail to make something someone wants to buy from them. right? Now, in retrospect, this might seem pretty obvious that the startups are failing to make something that someone wants to buy from them. But it turns out that it's the single most important reason why startups fail, because you're making something that nobody really wants. And by nobody, I don't mean like, who's one person that will definitely buy anything that you build?
Friends and family.
Okay, I was going to say your mom, right? Like your Chiranjeevi is absolutely right. Your friends and family, because they care about you, they love you, they're like, oh, Chiranjeevi has built this, I need to go buy it, right? So they will buy, but that's not how you build a company, right? A company is built when you're solving a real problem for real people that are going to buy it, not because they like you, but because they really see meaning. And you could see that in the initial sort of interaction when I was asking you about what are products that you love. You could see how each of you were explaining in a very charming way, like, why did you find that useful, right? Like SK's face lit up when he was talking about the yum bowl, right? And when you're talking about the felt pad under the table, you could see that it'll solve a real problem, right? Like the table makes a noise and your dad is saying, hey, don't make that noise, and now you've fixed it, right? That's a real problem that a product has solved. And most startups fail because they fail to make this connection between a real problem and what they are building, right? And I can say this from personal experience, right? I mentioned I've done multiple startups, and I can point to examples where we went off, raised money, built product, took it to market, and then realized, wow, there isn't really a need for what we have built, right? So this raises another question, which is, if now that I've told you that this is the biggest reason why startups fail, can you think of a way where you can prevent this from happening? Let's say one of you is launching a startup. How do you think you can make sure that you don't fall into this trap? You don't end up building something that nobody wants. Any of you can jump in.
By analyzing the current market, the current needs, or whatever, like maybe surveying from people and getting to know what they want, finding user interests, etc. Maybe.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer. I'm going to tune it a little bit, right? Because there are some elements of that answer I'm going to recommend you not do. But there is a core to that. What Divyashree just said is absolutely critical. The answer to this question, which is there something people want, doesn't lie in your minds, right? We might tend to think we understand people around us, we understand the market, but the answer to this question really lies with your intended customers, right? And what Divyashree said, which is, I want to go understand whether there's a real problem or not, that has to be through interactions with customers. And so before we go on into the rest of the presentation, that's the big takeaway I want you to leave in today's session with, which is, you have a startup idea. Like Chiranjeevi had this idea of, hey, I want to launch an Airbnb for pets. The only way you can really verify whether there's a real need for it or not is by going and talking to pet owners, right? And I'm a pet owner, and I immediately reacted to it. You could see that I reacted to it positively and said, look, I would use it because I know my social interactions are quite curtailed because of my dog, and I don't want to leave him alone at home for a long time. But that's the only way you can really understand whether there is a real need or not. And I mentioned that I'm going to tune something. So Divyashree used the word survey, and I know she meant it in a generic way. But sometimes founders tend to just create a Google form, and they'll administer a survey to 1,000 people, and they'll ask some standard questions, and they'll get an answer, and they'll say, hey, I think we have uncovered a need for something. And this evidence-based entrepreneurship methodology, we strongly discourage you from doing that. And the reason is because you're not going to learn the texture of those answers unless you interact with them in person. And so these conversations, the process is called customer discovery, and I'll focus more on it in the next lecture, is really going and talking to your intended customers and having a conversation through which you create a more textured answer to, is there a real need for what I want to build, right? And that process is called customer discovery. And I'll sort of walk you through it in the next lecture in terms of how to talk to people without necessarily getting the wrong answer, right? So let's assume Chiranjeevi walks up to a pet owner and says, hey, I'm a CEG student. I'm thinking of launching this company called Pet Hood that will be an Airbnb for dogs. Would you use it? What do you think the answer is going to be? How will most people react to that question?
They might say yes, just to be nice.
Exactly. So I feel like you all have attended my lecture before, right? Because you're all giving me the correct answer. So Deveshi is 100% right. If you walk up to somebody and say, I'm a college student, I'm building this, would you buy it? 9 out of 10 of them will say, yes, I will buy it, because they don't want to be mean to you. They want to be nice to you. They're going to say yes. And so customer discovery, there's a way to do it where you don't bias the person that you're talking to, and you're really getting to the heart of the truth, right? Which is there a real need for what you want to build? And I'll spend some time in the next lecture talking about it, right? And part of this is like this process of customer discovery and trying to figure out whether there's a real need is a small piece of a bigger exercise called business model development, right? And I'll come to this slide in a second, but there's been a lot of interesting developments in terms of how business models for startups are constructed. So when you walk into a VC today, a venture capitalist, and say, hey, I want to raise money, the first question they're going to ask you is, what's your business model, right? At a high level, what that means is, how are you going to make money, right? And it turns out that there are now 9 elements of a business that you need to figure out, right? And you can see the building blocks in this business model canvas. These are the 9 elements, right? Like, who are your partners? What are the activities you have to do? What is the value proposition? Who's your customer? What is the cost structure? What's the revenue stream? But in the next lecture, I'm not going to focus on this business model canvas. I just wanted you to be aware that there is something called a business model canvas that in a single slide can capture the entire business model for your startup. But we're going to focus on a really simplified version of the business model canvas, which is, when you come up with a startup idea, you should be able to represent that startup idea in this form. X will buy Y because of Z, right? This is called a business thesis. It's a really distilled form of your business model canvas. X is your customer, Y is the product or the solution that you want to build, and Z is the need, right? And was it Aishwarya who talked about the table and the felt pads? Aishwarya, was that you, or was it Samita?
Oh, yes, it was me.
Okay, so if Aishwarya were to construct the business thesis for those felt pads, she will say people who have rickety tables at home will buy these felt pads because it will stop these tables from making noise, right? So that's how you would convert that product into a business thesis, right? Where, who is the buyer, what are they buying, and what problem does it solve? And any startup idea that you have, you're going to come up with this business thesis, and then you're going to use this evidence-based entrepreneurship methodology that I'll talk about next week, not next week, 2 days from now, how you can refine this business thesis to be more true than what it was when it just came out of your mind. Does that make sense, right? So that's what we'll focus on. And I know we've run out of time, but I'm going to leave you with this one thing. I won't give this to you as a homework, but I do want you to each come up with a new product idea, right? It could be a real pain that you face in your life and you're like, oh, I wish there was a product, right, that could solve this. I want you to come up with a product idea in the next 2 days, and I want you to frame it in this form. X will buy Y because of Z, right? And I'm just thinking, SK, if there are other students who will attend on Thursday, it might be useful to just share it as a Google form that they can just submit. So they can come up with an idea, and the only thing we need to ask for them is something of this form, X will buy Y because of Z.
Sounds good. Sounds good, Shiva. I can either post a Google form, or if you would like to create a form and send me a link, I can put it up with the students.
Perfect. I'm going to leave you with one thing. Again, this has nothing to do with my lecture, but I do this religiously for every lecture that I give. I'm going to give you a puzzle that I want you to try to solve by the next lecture. Okay, so for you to solve this, you don't need to be good at chess. I know this is a chess problem, but you just need to know the basic rules of chess. This is more a logical and analytical problem than a chess problem. Okay, so here is a board, and you can see that the white queen is missing, right? And I want you to figure out who killed the white queen. Is the question clear? Right? So, and there is only one answer to this question, if based on the rules of chess. Right? Any questions on the puzzle itself? Like, does the same solvable? Okay, how many of you play chess here? Samita, do you know the rules of chess?
Yeah, I used to play chess, so I know the basic rules.
Okay, wonderful. Aishwarya, how about you?
Yeah, I know how they move.
Okay, that's all you need to solve this puzzle. Chiranjeevi?
Yeah, I played when I was a kid. I think I remember a little bit.
Okay, yeah, you just need to know how the pieces move. That's all you need to know to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, one doubt.
Yeah.
Usually, isn't the king and queen of black and white should they be in opposite directions?
No.
No.
Kings are lined up on the same file, but they are on opposite colors. Like the black king will be on a light square and the white king will be on a dark square.
Cool. Okay.
Divashri, do you know the rules of chess?
Yes, sir. I know just the
Okay.
rules.
Yeah, that's enough for you to solve this puzzle. KG and SK, how about you both?
Yeah, but this is really tough. I do play chess, but I don't know if this is a real trick or...
It's not a trick. It's a purely logical problem, right? So based on the rules of chess, there is only one answer to this. You should be able to figure out who killed the white queen. And in fact, you can also figure out where the white queen got killed. So this is from a class of problems called retrograde analysis. It's sort of more loosely called forensic science, right? Where something has happened and you need to trace back what has happened to figure out a point in the past, right? And so I'm going to escape. When I send you the form, I'll also send you this puzzle so that you can share it. But if the students, if you can just take a screen capture for now, right? I want you to think about it in terms of who killed the white queen. Okay. With that, I'll stop today's lecture. Thanks for joining, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all on Thursday. And Thursday, we'll sort of do a deeper dive in terms of, okay, you came up with a startup idea, you put it together as a business thesis. How do you now make sure that there is a real need for what you want to build, right? And what does this customer discovery process look like so that you can increase the confidence with which you can move forward? And then I'll also make sure that I touch upon the specific questions each of you asked. Okay, with that, SK, I'm going to hand the baton back to you.
Thank you so much, Siva. It was an exciting session. Students, hope you all made good use of it. Please tell your friends. We want everybody taking advantage of it. And we look forward to the next session in a couple of days. Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. IST. Please join. Thank you again, Siva. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.